One, two, one, two. Can you hear me, madam?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, so when I had this idea that I wanted to do a podcast, you were on the list. Probably top five people I wanted to interview, simply because I see so many things on social media about the good job you do at Denbigh High School. And since I know you from high school, um, I always feel proud, and I figure when I, do the podcasting, I wanted to talk to you, because you're a child of St. Thomas and um, past student of Morant Bay High School, and you know how we do. We always
Carpe diem.
forever and ever. So, we met in high school, and like I say all the time, life doesn't start in high school. So, just tell some of my listeners and other people who would like to know more things about you, like, where did life start for you?
All right. So I didn't start out in St. Thomas. I have some friends who refer to me as a bluefoot. I started in Kingston. Was actually born in St. Andrew, in Cockburn Pen, and my early years. Where?
Urban?
Yes, Cockburn Pen. I seem to have a thing for the pens, because I'm living in Maypen now. So I started in Cockburn Pen. The early years of school were in Kingston, Alpha Prep, and then Meadowbrook High School. I didn't grow up in a traditional, family. We had, my mother was a single mother, as my father, he lived elsewhere, had many children. So I have a lot of brothers and sisters, but only child for my mother. But although she was a single mother, or a single parent, it was an extended family, very close-knit extended family. So there was great support from grandmother, grandfather, aunts, uncles. So I never felt like there was a struggle at any point, simply because there were so many persons who were there to support the children. All of us as cousins had that kind of support from, the aunts and uncles. I would want to say that I grew up in a family of teachers too, because I have an aunt and uncle who are both teachers or were teachers. One of them is now deceased. So the whole teaching thing, I would want to say, was instilled from pretty early, because you grew up seeing papers come home. They would be marking, talking about their experiences at school. So that was really integral in those early years. For us, the St. Thomas heart of our lives was always there too, because my grandfather was a busher in Bachelor's Hall for one of the cocoa farms, and plus he was a farmer. So every Saturday, my job, along with some of the other cousins, was to meet the K-Sons bus in order to, meet him, and he would come off with the crocus bags full of ground provision. We would get a cart to take most of them to the house, but he would always carry something on his head, typical farmer style, head or back, sometimes two. So the St. Thomas experience was still a part of all that we were.
I can't wait to get into the St. Thomas. Let's just, backtrack a little bit. So your first school was, you said it was Alpha Prep, you said?
Alpha Prep, yes.
Okay, and then
Meadowbrook common entrance. I tell my students now that I did PEP, but really and truly, it was common entrance back in those days. And I still remember, just how common entrance would come out in the newspaper, and you would go out to buy the paper on that day and search for your name. And coming from Alpha Prep, of course, I expected that I would go to Alpha Academy. So when the paper came, my name was not there. And so, one piece of balling, because it didn't pass for high school until late in the day, because I spent the whole day waiting for my mother to come home from work, because I was sure to get a sound thrashing for not passing common entrance. So it wasn't until way down in the evening that my Aunt Pat I guess, going through the paper, basically buck up into my name under Meadowbrook. That was the first I was hearing of Meadowbrook High School. But it was a good school, great experience for the 2 years that I was there.
Then you had to deal with the entire neighborhood telling you congratulations everywhere you turn, right? Because I had that experience too. So tell me a little bit about life at Meadowbrook High School.
There is, as I would have been traveling from basically, well, at some point we left Cockburn Pen because you know the kind of violence that there was, political violence in the 80s. And so I would have lived and survived that period. Mm-hmm. So at some point we moved to Ocean View Avenue, which is in Rockfort. So I would have been traveling from basically downtown to uptown. So there was a little, I would want to say, divide of sorts, because I didn't come from the area. You know, generally they try to place you into schools that are close. So I didn't live close to the school at all. So it was a little challenge at first, you know, just fitting in. But it was a good experience. You know, I got exposure to some things that I think have stood behind me as even now as a teacher, because having had that traditional Kingston high school experience, it helps me to understand a little bit better some of what children are going through, not coming from that environment.
Okay, so you did first to say third form at Meadowbrook High School?
First and second.
Oh, first and second form. And then the great transition from Kingston to St. Thomas took place. What time frame was that?
All right, so we're not talking about time frame here, you know. I'm just joking. So it would have been in the 80s that my grandfather, you know, I spoke earlier about the family being very close-knit. So he fell ill, and of course, being a countryman, he would not relocate to Kingston. So my mother packed up all of us and just relocated to take care of her father. So that's how I ended up in Bachelor's Hall, St. Thomas. Culture shock. I'm leaving Kingston, you know, piped water, toilet, in indoor toilet facilities, electricity. And my house was the last board house in the community of Bachelor's Hall. So everything ended before you got to my house. That was where JPS stopped running the light wires. No pipes ran down there. So I transitioned to a place where I was bathing at Plantain Garden River, or the Great PG, as we call it. Catching water at the community standpipe, learning how to, and I mean, as a 13-year-old, to figure out how to, because some children are born basically knowing how to carry water on their head, right? And making the cutter that they have to put the bucket on. I had to learn how to do that. That was a massive fail, I must tell you. So luckily the family got some water jugs. So, you know, to hold the 2 water jugs and walk from the pipe for a scrawny 13-year-old girl was probably what has contributed to some of the strength, but that was the experience. Pit toilet, figuring out how to go outside at night with the cotton lizards that would be in the pit toilet, because it's country, it's bush. Sometimes using a bottle torch, doing homework by the home sweet home lamp. All of that was a part
of country life.
Yes, of the experience in Bachelor's.
So for those who don't know St. Thomas, is not familiar with it geographically, just explain to people exactly where in St. Thomas is Bachelor's Hall, because I want them to understand for someone coming from, you know, Kingston, which is very urban, to deep rural St. Thomas. I just want people to get an idea like how rural Bachelor's Hall is.
Okay, so you have Bath, which is probably more familiar to people, you know, with the Bath Fountain Hotel, or spa facilities. And then Bachelor's Hall is about 2.5 miles out of Bath.
Okay.
Towards Portland.
Okay.
So all taxis and minibuses stopped in Bath. The only thing that ran past Bath would be the Caissons or meal bus on its way to Portland, to Port Antonio. So if I stayed over for netball practice, if netball practice ran late at school, and the Caissons left me, then I would be stuck in Bath and then have to walk the 2.5 miles. So, I mean, in the night, sometimes if it got dark or in the rain, in order to go to Bachelor's Hall. There were a few times that we went to netball matches out of parish. And I remember the first night we had a case like that when we came back really late. Mr. Stevens and Miss Menzie took me home and they kept saying, where's the house? Where's the house? Where's the house? Because it's pure darkness, no street light. And after that first experience, they decided, no, this can't happen again. So I was one of the lucky ones who stayed over with them when we traveled out of parish and came back late.
Okay, big ups to Mr.
Big
up to Mr. Stevens and Miss Menzie, like a real influential teachers and overall mentors to a whole bunch of us during our high school days at the great Morant Bay High School. So now Kingstonian girl is in St. Thomas and adjusting to the real country life, because there is country and then there is country. So 2 years completed at Meadowbrook. Now you're in deep rural St. Thomas, and high school transition, one would say. So now tell me about the transition to Morant Bay High School. How did you adapt? Who were some of your first teachers? Who were some of the first friendships that you made? And what was it like in the first year, first term, as we would say it back then? What was it like when coming from Meadowbrook and coming to Morant Bay High School?
Right. So the initial stage, I would say, was a little challenging, dealing with the home situation and figuring out, just how to travel to school from so far away. That was a challenge at first. But I would say my first day, I met a friend who is my sister. That first day, Rafaelita Whitelock walked into that classroom where we were both newcomers, both transfer students.
I think I know who that is.
That's the Great Dane. And she was also coming from, Clarendon, ironically. She was coming from Knox. So we were both newbies, and Mr. Shepherd put us both together.
Big up to Mr. Shepherd, rest in peace.
That was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. And though she already knew persons in the school, so that helped to make things easier. She introduced me to other persons. So that group of girls, Dane, Noveen, Shernet, Judith. Of course, there were others who came after, but that initial core set of girls would be the ones who would have helped me to settle in, to find my footing, so to speak. So it was, Morant Bay High School became a family, which I never had at Meadowbrook. I didn't stay long enough for that to happen. And the irony of it is that some of these were girls who were friends from even basic school, but they embraced me and helped with the transition in so many ways. There are other teachers who were so integral. I mentioned Mr. Stevens and Miss Menzie already. But you have Miss Holness, who was also a part of the whole netball experience. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Jackson, Leighton Johnson, and then you have, of course, Howard Jackson, who I don't know if I met the harsher side of the man. We somehow got along quite well. And of course,
Lucky you. You never got yelled at.
No, I didn't. I didn't get yelled at.
Okay.
There was also Mr. Kumar, one of the former principals, and of course, most importantly, Dr. Harold McDermott. I say to my students all the time, because even last week, Dr. Mac had a workshop with my com study students at Denbigh. I'm always telling them the story of how Dr. Mac saved me. Up until I went to Dr. Mac's first class, I thought that I was a dunce girl. I was struggling in school. And my very first class, he gave us a short story to write, and then he read my short story. And, the rest is history. That's where I realized that there was something that I was good at, that I could write well, that I could speak well. Every literature essay that was written, I wasn't the only one, but there are other students in the class who he would give books, literature books, and those form a part of my personal collection to this day. So that kind of motivation is something that really every child needs. And I know that without him and that influence, I probably would be in bachelor's hall with 10 kids right now.
So let's just take this opportunity to give a special shout out to Mr. Harold McDermott, who was my English teacher in first and third form. He's responsible for a lot of things in my life. He's the reason I can construct a sentence and not so many and pambula and eat it. As they would say.
He did good.
So you mentioned netball. So we know you came to Morant Bay High School. You were welcomed and groomed and got settled in, made good friends. Had great teachers. So netball was your extracurricular activity, so to speak. So talk a little bit about your days of playing netball. Were you a good player? What was the position you played?
So the netball journey started in prep school. Funny enough, I actually played for Alpha Prep. But at Meadowbrook, I somehow never got involved in sports because living so far downtown, it was not easy to stay after school. So when I came to Morant Bay High School, although I still lived so far away, Miss Menzies spotted me in PE class and encouraged me to come and try out. So it was really a means for me of settling in even better. I'm still not a very I would want to say one of those persons who full of endurance, so I can't run the whole court. I would play half court. So the wing defense position was where I was placed. And, I had the opportunity, being on the netball team, of meeting some of the older girls, and building a kind of relationship with them. So that helped to ease me into the school as well. Because, hold
on 1 second. Is this your way of suggesting to me that I should not invite you to join Movements of Cha People, my exercise program? Is that what you try to do here?
Well, let's see. Maybe if I start off with something so structured, because it seems to be a very structured program and one that's motivational and inspirational. So who knows? It might just convince me a little bit to see if I can participate.
Okay. Do you remember who were some of your teammates, your netball teammates at Morant Bay High School?
There were the Broderick sisters. You as a young player, you looked up to those girls as being so good, and you aspired to be like them.
Who are the Broderick sisters? I think I know who people are.
Okay, but there was also Michelle Broderick, who would have been younger than I was. So the younger sister would have been on the junior team at the same time as I was. I remember Camille Payton. She was an excellent center. What in nowadays, my school is a netball school. We are netball champions. So when we talk about a center where Wasi, you talk about Camille Payne. She was really, really good.
Oh, okay. I know who she is. I remember her from high school. And big up to Michelle and Cheryl. Those are people I know very well. So that was the extracurricular activity you were involved in. So the love for the English language was really somewhat created by Mr. McDermott, and he kind of became your mentor, so to speak, and you credited him for everything you have done as far as English language and English literature. But were you excelling or doing good in any other area in high school that if you didn't become an English teacher, what else you think you would teach?
No, I was, I did business subjects. And of course, there was Mr. Ossa, who just based on personality alone, anybody would pass accounts and POB because he was such an awesome teacher,
Okay.
you know.
And
we became colleagues at some point because while I was vice principal, he was also vice principal. I was vice principal at Denbigh. He was vice principal at Wolmer's Boys, you know, but I still remember him and the impact. I remember some of those lunchtime sessions, jamming sessions with Mr. Ossa and Mr. Sopraya, Ziggy Sopraya, playing the drums and just doing poetry. So, you know, while I did there was a mixture of the sciences and the business, the language and literature were just what I loved. And if there was a possibility of anything else, I doubt it, because when I left sixth form, Dr. McDermott actually came to find me in Bachelor's Hall and brought me back to Morant Bay High School as a pre-trained teacher to teach language and literature. So I don't know if anything else ever crossed my mind. Okay. You know, it was always just the love of literature more than anything else.
Okay, I see. So you became an English teacher. Which college did you attend?
Teacher of English.
No, which one of the
Shortwood Teachers College.
Shortwood Teachers College. Okay, and from there you went straight to Denbigh High School as a young teacher.
I did, and I'm just reminding you a little bit of the Harold McDermott. It's teacher of English, not English teacher. So I became a teacher of English.
You became a teacher of English, not an English teacher. There is a difference.
Not from England.
Okay, so I remember seeing something on social media where Morant Bay High School was going up against Denbigh High School in School Challenge. I want to ask you about that. Like, how do you operate? How do you function when the school that you work for is going up against your school? Explain that for me, because is that a win-win or is that a lose-lose? Which is it?
A lose-lose. It's a tough one. That's what you call caught between a rock and a hard place, because we actually faced Morant Bay High School twice. The second time was during COVID, so you know it wasn't, you don't have full school. But the very first time when I had to announce to my students, to Denbigh High School students at devotion, that we were going up against Morant Bay High School, you know, you could hear a pin drop. The students were looking at me to see whose side I was on. It was tough. It was tough because, and even the quiz team, you know, you had to be so careful in dealing with these young people so that they understand that their principal loves them, believes in them, but at the same time, it's my alma mater. So, you know, that one was a tough one. Tough one.
Listen, I would not.
But there's a little bit of pride, I must confess, because my school is a non-traditional high school, you know, an upgrade, what you call an upgraded high school. We started off as a junior secondary. So for us to be in a place where TVJ can invite us back to be a part of Schools Challenge Quiz annually and to go up against a traditional high school, a giant like Morant Bay High School, you know, that's a great sense of pride for me.
I wouldn't want to be you in a situation like that. Because, you know, you can't really choose, you know, because anyone you choose, there's some type of a feeling of betrayal somewhat, I would say, but, you know, better you than me, that's all I would say. So you mentioned some of your friends, and we are social media friends. I kind of noticed that those same names you mentioned that became your friends in high school, the same girls, you guys are still very close to this day. And I really admire that. I really admire that. So talk about that, that journey from, I would say, age 13, 14 to this day where we are all grown and middle-aged people, quite frankly, and you guys are still so close. What is it that makes you guys still so close to this day?
We are sisters, it's not, we've transcended friendship, and we're not the kinds of friends who have to talk to each other every day. We don't have to see each other every ever so often. We don't have to be all up in each other's lives to just know that we're there for each other when it matters. So we do have our little private group that we communicate in. We share the good things, we share the bad things. We're there for each other, supporting each other. Even as as adults, we still talk a lot about some of those experiences. We wish we could go back to being 14 again. Some of the best times. Those are some of the best times. We just had no care. The only thing we had to do was turn up for school, do well in school, and just be teenagers. But we are still really close. And I think that bond that we just created then, the support for each other, the love for each other is what has kept us through. So it's funny. I don't ever recall us having a disagreement, much less a major disagreement. Okay. We are still just like this. So yeah. So we are sisters. They are my sisters. Big up yourself, Noveen, Dane, Shernit.
And while we at it, I just take this opportunity. Yeah, of course. To big up my brothers, because my crew from high school is still the same. Big shout outs to the one and only Mr. O'Neill Stewart, Mr. Lloyd Fliss, Mr. Leon Richardson. Those are my boys. There's some extended members of the crew, but we'll be here till tomorrow. Me shouting out everybody. You'll probably see them on this program at sometime in the future, because I don't do too many things without them. But I just wanna tell you on behalf of everybody from the parish of St. Thomas, everybody from Morant Bay High School, that whenever we see stuff in the news, when we see stuff on social media about the good job you do at Denbigh High School, you make us proud. Just continue to make us proud, and don't stop doing what you're doing. I'm gonna leave a little bit of room so we could have a part 2 in the future, and we talk more about your teaching experience from the early days to the point where you are now principal of a high school in Jamaica. So thanks for your time. Any parting words, anything you want to say?
Just 2 things I want to touch on, just the fact that my Denbigh High School family, they are it's more than just a job. There is a passion for the institution and just for the teamwork that has made the institution rise to where it is today. It's not a one-man show. It has never been, so it's a team. Okay. And I'm just so proud to be a part of the team that's helping a school to grow in this way. You mentioned your crew and the extended crew. We have so many of those, so it's more than just about Judith, Noveen, Dane, Shernit, and we have Althea, and there are so many others who just the bond from Morant Bay High School that we would have formed, and extending even outside of girls to even boys. Some of the males that were there with us. Your set of friends, and some of the others. So many. Too many to mention. I don't want to get into trouble by leaving anybody out.
I could mention a few.
Social media has kept us connected in a great way. Facebook and Instagram, and it's so good because at least even though we are not physically in the same space, so many persons have migrated. There are some of us who are still here. you know, we're still connected. It's still, you still get that little feeling of nostalgia when you see or peers, you know, and all that they're doing in the different ways. So
Let me take this
good stuff.
opportunity to shout out the dual crew. Big up Scully, big up Wilma, big up Rugger, big up Smurf, big up to Doc M and the Waynes. A part of that crew was, our boys from Morant Bay High School, Mr. Wayne Santos, Mr. Wayne Brown. Big up to Vincent, and I could go on and on and on. We'll be here till tomorrow. It's a whole gang of them. So I want to say thank you for your time. We hope to do this in person next time we do this. There's a chair right there. You could come in here and hang out, and we could just vibe and talk and do what we do. Thank you very much, madam. We wish you all the best. I hope your school excel all the time, but don't beat Morant Bay High School in nothing, okay?
All right, Bara, I hear you. This boss GB, I hear you. And just my final thing though, before I go, I just want to commend you, the whole MOJP movement, reaching out to so many people, because exercise is important. Our health is our wealth. And, I noticed there's an apparel line. So congrats, entrepreneurial skills and all.
Yeah, the idea of the podcast came before the t-shirt line, but COVID-19 slowed that down tremendously. So the clothing came before the podcast. So, you could go to thereallicense.com. All my peeps from St.Thomas, you could get, stuff that, big up a parish, and, you know how we do. And you could get, just Jamaican t-shirts and West Indian t-shirts. And, in the cold times, you could get the hoodies and the sweatshirts and all that good stuff. And join us on Facebook. Movements of the people, get some exercising going in, you know what I mean? So thanks for the time, and hopefully, like I said, we could do this in person. You know what I mean?
Right, looking forward to it.
So take great care until we see each other again, okay?
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.